Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those who are new, I know you can benefit. So I'm so excited to finally reveal the little trick that I've been using this last 9 days so successfully. And I know 9 days doesn't seem like that much, but when you have had trouble with being able to resist urges and temptations for as long as I have, 9 days is a flippin' miracle. And I am a miracle girl, so I am going to accept that. All right, so my hidden thing regarding my jar that I encouraged all of you to get was what I had written on it was urge jar. This is referred to as an urge jar. And before I get more into it, let me give full credit to Brooke, with an E on the end, Castillo. And Brooke Castillo is the owner and founder of the Life Coach School, And she created this amazing solution to people who are trying to overcome compulsions. And I am certainly one of those. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and how it works. And of course, as always, I am attaching her video. And unfortunately, I couldn't find her video. It was like, she has one that's like 105 minutes. It's very visual. It has different diagrams and things, which I know helps so much for those of you who are visual. I could not locate that. The one that I found is actually a podcast, and it's about 33 minutes, but I will put that in the description of this video. And what I did appreciate about the podcast was that it forced me to visualize in my own head what I felt she was attempting to teach and describe. And I think over time, my own visualization may carry me longer than me trying to dissect and understand a visual video. But I encourage you to do your own research and try and locate that. And again, it's Brooke Castillo, and it's called The Urge Jar. And you can find that, but I have connected the podcast. All right, so the first thing about this is that it's totally scientific based. And essentially, it's successful because there's an understanding of how our brains function. And basically, we have two brains. The first brain is our caveman brain, if you will. It's the primal brain. And the primal brain is only concerned about getting your needs met in that moment. It is absolutely needing to be satisfied right then and there and cannot wait. And Brooke kind of equates it with a toddler or a small child, which I can totally understand, because when you're in the grocery store, and sadly, everything is designed to be at the eye level of a child. When you're in a grocery store, the child inevitably is reaching for everything and wanting everything, and are even willing to throw a fit to get it. So they'll be saying, give it, mama, I want it, the whole thing, and hoping to break the parent down. And so often they are successful. And the parent, either out of embarrassment and wanting to avoid a scene, or just sheer exhaustion, just says, fine, just take the dang thing, And then that little kid is so joyful and happy because they've won, essentially. So when you think about caveman times, it was being in survival mode, right? It was like either flight or fight. And basically knowing that they needed their most basic needs met. So just shelter and food, and finding that. And that's the primal brain. It's very food now, warmth, fire, like minimalistic, and just wanting to get the needs met right away. And it has a lot to do with instant gratification and instantly needing to solve that problem. Whereas the newer brain, and the one that ideally we function in, though sadly, at least 90% of the population is always hanging out in the primal brain in instant gratification, which is why we're suffering from obesity and it's such extreme behaviors. The ideal brain that we want to strive for is our prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex totally has the ability to long-term plan. It has the ability to be patient. It is language based and a communicator, somebody who deciphers emotions and feelings and can actually see the importance of waiting before making a spontaneous decision. So the prefrontal cortex serves us most when we're trying to actually make permanent change. So the primal brain may initially allow you to do something, but it inevitably is going to fit, throw, and resist. But the prefrontal cortex, if we can stay in that brain, will allow permanent change over time. Okay, so that's just general, and of course Brooke explains it far better because she's totally scientific based. But I get it, because what I've been saying is, like, for the last 9 months I've been trying to go in this direction, and seemingly every few days I falter. And I know that it's what I refer to as my inner child throwing a fit because they want what they want. And sadly, I have not had the tools to not give in to that panic attack or fit throwing or whatever it is. But somehow for the last 9 days, I have absolutely made it through every challenge. And I understand why. And it has to do with this simple jar. It's super important that you have a clear jar and something beautiful to put in it. Like this, I have different colored beads. I have different, I call it, I'm tired, and I'm going to be saying bead, I'm going to be saying marble, I'm going to be saying pebbles. All of it's the same thing. Whatever magic you chose to use to fill your jar. And kind of what the idea behind that is that the primal brain, even though it's the oldest, it's the least developed, it kind of hangs out as a 5-year-old or even a toddler, as I suggested, that is fit throwing. But the beautiful thing about a 5-year-old is they understand reward, and they love shiny things, stickers, fun little trinkets, right? It doesn't have to be food-based by any means. It just has to be something tangible, and kind of like the caveman, it has to be something that they can see that they've built over time. So filling up this jar visually suggests that it's not just a reward, but it's something that's growing and tangible. And so that's kind of why I like the bigger rocks too, because I like to hold them almost like a worry stone when I'm really struggling, but I also like the pretty little ones too. So Brooke explains that she knows that this just seems so silly and ridiculous. How can it possibly work? And part of the reason for that is because the prefrontal cortex is so logical that it's like, don't treat me like a child. Like, why are you even babying me or suggesting some little toy like that? It's so incredibly logical. But the little primal brain is saying, yes, please. We would love to get a prize. Please give me a prize. And so what the objective is that every time you're having an urge, and inevitably we will have urges, and to rely on our own willpower is never going to be successful, because that little primal brain will continue to pull at you and knock at you until you finally falter. And so it's not enough to have willpower, or it's great to have a long-term goal, but you've got to keep that primal brain intact. And one way to do it is to reward it when it actually cooperates. And so that's what I've been kind of finding all week. So there's 6 steps for this. And again, when you listen to the podcast, you'll really get a sense of it. And if you're struggling, you're like, oh, I can't go through a whole podcast. Hi, people who need to have immediate gratification. Then you can go to about minute 28. And she will literally just go through the six steps very quickly. But those are the reviews of the steps that she just spent 28 minutes going through. So I really suggest you have the grace to listen to the entire podcast. Again, if you really just need an overview of each step, you can probably start at about the 16-minute mark, and it'll go into pretty good details. But it is in your best interest to listen to the entire podcast. And because she has the life coach school, she has far more in-depth opportunities for you to get help with this if it's something that you're interested in delving into deeper, which of course would be phenomenal. Right now it's working for me and I'm stoked. So of the 6 steps, step number 1 is that you write down your food, okay? And you have to write it 24 hours in advance. And the reason for this is because You want to be in that prefrontal cortex, which of course is the adult, the organizer, the person who understands long-term goals and can calmly, in a non-threatened compulsive state, write down the food for the next day. If you do it like a couple hours before, that primal brain will totally fit throw and also give you some really bad suggestions for what it is you want to eat. The prefrontal cortex is always in your best interest. It always wants you to be the best version of yourself. And so you can trust that. So about 24 hours in advance, you want to write down what you're going to eat the following day. This is not a diet per se, so it's no one telling you what you're supposed to eat. It's just making sure that what you're choosing is going to serve you, with your health or where you're at. And everybody's in a different place and they're all eating different, what Brooke refers to as protocols, the food that you're choosing. So I'm not even going to presume to know that. I'm just going to kick through this with some examples. And again, I encourage you to listen to her. So first, you're very specifically writing down what you plan on eating the next day. It may mean having to call the restaurant you're going to or whatever, but you need to have a sense of it because you're trying to build trust within yourself. So when you write it down, you have to be specific. Are you eating 3 bananas or 6? Are you having a baked potato with salad? Because you can't suddenly change it to a yam and, let's just say, just cut up lettuce. Like you have to be totally specific because, again, you're trying to build consistency and trust within yourself. Okay, so step 2 is to actually eat the food you wrote down, to literally write what you wrote down. And again, that primal brain is going to encourage you to make changes. And you have to be consistent enough to say, this is what I chose and I'm sticking with it. And that's where your urge jar is going to come in. When that little kid starts throwing a fit and saying, oh, but it's not going to hurt if, and we could just have a bite of, but I'm still hungry, can we please? Give them all the little urge rewards you need to. Sit with the feeling and the out of controlness, but don't do it. Don't do it. And just remind yourself in your grown-up prefrontal cortex that you're going to be eating again tomorrow. Because what's happened with me is that I've all of a sudden said, but it's not going to hurt me if I just have whatever's on my program. It might just be wanting to put raisins on something. But I didn't choose raisins. And by my little, what I keep referring to as my kid, but my primal brain winning out and talking me into that. Well, if they can talk me into faltering, just like a mom, I know every student whose parent gives in to their every command because they try and pull it on me all the time. And I'm like, that must work on your parent, but it doesn't work on me. But they know that if they keep wearing the adult down, the adult will finally falter and they'll get what they want. It's the same thing. That primal brain is going to keep asking you for stuff that's not on your plan. And the less you give in to that, the better you are going to be in every way. And having these little urges are best. So that's actually step number 3. Step number 3 is having your urge jar, making sure that it's visual, making sure that it's beautiful, making sure that it's accessible, and making sure that every time your kid overcomes an urge, and an urge may last a glimpse for 1 second you felt an urge. It may weigh on you for 4 or 5 minutes. It may haunt you for 10 minutes. An urge is only, like each individual urge is considered 10 minutes. So after 10 minutes, if you're having an urge still, you can consider that a second urge and win your little primal brain, another rock, another marble, another whatever glass bead you've chosen after 10 minutes. So you really, really need to be consistent. You might find yourself in a situation where you're not around your urge jar. So for me, and again, 9 days is a miracle. I have never made it 9 days where I haven't faltered and had just peace within myself. So what I've done is I've had my urge, glass rocks with me. I've had them, a couple in my jacket pocket. I've had a couple in my lunch kit. And what I've done during my day is I have went ahead and paid myself at school, and then ultimately when I got home, put it in my jar. And there's about 40 in here. Brooke found that in general, people who went for 100, not only was it super satisfying for the primal brain in seeing accumulation, which it loves, but for every 100, people could lose 20 pounds on average. And the reason for that is because 100 times they did not give in to a food urge in this circumstance. Again, it might be alcohol for someone, it may be money. Brooke healed herself of alcohol. She didn't consider it alcoholism. She considered it an understanding between her two brains and being able to resist that urge. So anyway, I carry them. So for instance, today I got to school, people were eating donuts and they were good. And I was like, oh my gosh, guess what? We're going to get paid if we don't eat that. And I had my, what I consider a worry stone, one of my bigger ones in my hand. And we made it through that. And I got back to my room and there was some food left over from a party in there and they were total treats that provoked me. And I kind of panicked for a moment. And then I grabbed another one and said, great job. You know, I was on my way home and I was tempted by something. Congratulations. Good for you. I'm stoked. I was going to try and trick my husband into taking me to dinner. And luckily he had the courage to say, Jewel, you already wrote down all the food, hon. We already know what we're having for dinner. That was God's grace. But I gave myself another one. So I earned 4. And the kitchen's closed, but if I find myself freaking out again, I'll do another one because my little kid knows that every time we hold back, we get rewarded. And the reward is in the beads themselves. You're not going to suddenly get a new outfit. You're not going to suddenly get a special meal. The reward is the simplicity of these alone, which is why I trust them. It's like, it only costs $4 and I have total freedom and grace in my life. That's why I trust it. It's like when I go to church and only need to donate in the basket if I have it. When I go to a 12-step meeting and I only give if I can. And when I spend $4 on a life-giving freedom that is allowing me to be at peace within myself and succeed. So yes, I love it. Okay, step number 4. Let me think about it. Oh my gosh. So you have your urge jar. You're letting people, you're making sure it's in a place you can see. You're making sure it's clear. You're making sure it's beautiful. Oh, number 4, what are you? Sorry, you guys, I waited too late to do this. It's already 20 to 12 at night. But I promised you guys I wouldn't. I wasn't going to let you down. Number 4. It's going to come to me. I'll skip to number 5 though anyway. Because number 4 will come to me. Oh my gosh, I'm going to pause you a second. Okay, I'm back. So actually number 4 is what I said. So number 3 is having the jar and having your glass beads and using them, right, as needed. And number 4 is having the jar start to fill up. The goal is 100. And basically that's number 4, is just being able to see the glass beads filling up. I hope that's right. But again, you're going to listen to the podcast and then you'll know. Number 5, and this is what some people have trouble with, but number 5 is weighing yourself daily. And I know that's a trigger for some people. And if you've been watching this channel, and certainly the 45-week challenge that I'm doing, you know that that's a huge trigger for me. I'm going to say was a huge trigger for me. And for this, because it's scientific based and because I'm understanding the duality of the brain, it's no longer a threat to me. I just see weighing myself as one more tool. And that's because this entire thing has to be love-based. You totally need to be doing all of these actions out of acceptance. And I've been loving my little kid. I've been loving him 44 times, right? I've been spending time with myself saying we are rocking the world through our good choices. None of it is shame-based. So, for instance, let's say that you end up giving in to an urge, okay? You don't avoid an urge and reward yourself, which is the goal. The goal is to fill this up with all the urges that you've avoided, but you've accidentally given into one. With this, there's zero shame in that. You just simply don't get a reward. You don't get penalized. You don't get put down. You don't shame yourself. You just don't get a reward. And that is okay, because you'll just give yourself a reward next time, right? And of course, you don't want to continue to give into that, because unfortunately you're going to change your mindset again. And the mindset is going to go back into that manipulative primal brain. And so you don't want to keep going in that direction, but when you do, it's no shame. Well, it's the same thing with the scale. I'm recognizing that the scale is simply a tool. My prefrontal cortex wants to know, what are the numbers, where are we at? Do we need to reassess what we're eating, right? Do we have to change our protocol in some way? And again, for Brooke, protocol is everything from the food that you're choosing to eat and whether it's working for you, to the different actions that you're doing. I mean, like if it was drinking water every day, whatever your protocol is, do you need to reassess it? You will know that based on the numbers. So once I realized that there was no emotional attachment to the scale, that it is just information, I was totally able to do it. Before, if I was down 2 ounces, I would say, oh good, we get to eat more. If I was up 4, I was suicidal. Now it's just like, okay, where are we at? So in my journal, and I'm being very specific and I check it off for each thing that I've eaten. In my journal, I have this line right here, and on that line, that is where tomorrow I will write what my weight is. And then in that box, I have my goal weight of 128. And I believe that those are absolutely going to match up. It's just a matter of time and consistency, right? So number 5 is choosing to weigh yourself daily. That's up to you. Number 6, because people are like, well, what about when we get to 100? What do we do? Brooke says rinse and repeat. So just empty your jar and restart your jar. It doesn't need to be more fabulous than that. There's no greater ta-da. You just continue to rinse and repeat. Just do those same behaviors again and again for as long as you need to. And again, if you resolve your weight issue and you have something else you want to focus on, like reducing your drinking, reducing spending, speaking kindlier to people in your life, whatever it is, same story. Every time you have an urge regarding whatever that habit is that you want to change, urge jar. It's your urge jar. So it's phenomenal. It is totally phenomenal. And I am completely at peace and so hopeful. It's insane. I'm just like giddy, right? It's just amazing. I was so stoked to find the proper way that I could eat to honor my body and the planet. But I kept faltering because that primal brain just kept throwing fits and I gave in. But now I know how to appease that primal brain to make it feel safe and at peace and rewarded, which is such a blessing. And I am on my program. So as I suggested, it's almost midnight. I'm totally exhausted. Forgive my crossed eyes, which always happens when I'm tired. I would love to hear your feedback, especially after you listen to that podcast, or if you're already familiar with the urge jar. That'd be incredible and how it worked for you. So as always, my friends, I will be continuing to share on this because it is a tool that's working for me, and I will let you know what my continued success and struggles are, and mostly my ability to accept myself. And that is the greatest gift, right? So like if you like, join us if you haven't, share in the comments and let me support you. And most importantly, until we talk again, be blessed.